Greetings, Internet! Here we are in a brand new year, my first video of the year 2022, and here I am recording for you all in a brand new location. I promise you I'll explain where this is later in the video. Now, I know that the road to recovery from the rut that 2020 has left us all in has been a long one, and some of the low points for the world as a whole the past year. One is that we recently just lost Betty White this New Year's Eve, a mere 17 days before she would reach the age of 100. She was in real excellent condition these past few years as well, something that I think most of us could only dream of achieving on top of living the long and extensive career that she has left us with. At the beginning of the year, there was, of course, the insurrection of the Capitol. And even afterwards, there was still plenty of fresh hell in the news to wake up to, like reports about more hate crimes committed against ethnic minorities. There was that big freeze in Texas where millions have gone without power because of lack of responsibility on the leader's part. And there was a great jump in gas prices, which has affected me, even as somebody who doesn't drive. But I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then later in the year, there was the whole crisis involving the withdrawal of troops of Afghanistan. There were deadly tornadoes in Kentucky in the month of November. There was Great Resignation, which has impacted me as well as others, though I'll explain how it's impacted me specifically later. After watching so many videos regarding the whole resignation, as well as a few videos sharing the fear that we are on our way in another Great Depression, I don't think there's any one solid answer as to why so many people have not returned to work. The closest thing we've probably got as a solid answer to all that is, as always, the ever-persevering virus and how, whenever it looks like we're on the right track to getting under control, there's some new variant that emerges and threatens whatever we do and how much stricter guidelines we need to have established. So, some of the low points of 2021 for me personally, well, at the start of the year, I got sick with what we had to assume at the time was COVID, and it was the very same week as the insurrection of the Capitol. And after that passed, early on in the beginning of the year, I was living in our house by myself for a couple of months, because I normally live with my sister, but because she was not doing so well at that time, she had to head out to the west to get some help from our mom and other beloved health officials who were friends to the family. And with our staff at the gas station where I work at, one of our coworkers retiring, and the Great Resignation leaving, meaning that we've had our help wanted sign out for 3/4 of the whole year with little to no luck finding anyone, I had to pick up 2 extra hours pumping gas for who knows how long as of late. We may have found someone who might be a keeper, but we'll have to see. And speaking of gas, when I kept pumping as the price per gallon has gone up drastically, customers have been constantly screaming and complaining to me about it for months. I even got a few death threats for it, or at least one of them. I'm thankful that that hasn't happened to me as of late, and there have been far fewer complaints regarding the prices, even though the price being so high is not great for anyone, except maybe the planet Earth. But as a whole, we've been having to put up with all of it throughout the grueling hot hours of the summer. One of the only things that got me through that month, especially the month of July, which by and large has been the hardest month for me to endure for the past several years since I started this job, was the promise of another job that might possibly be my gateway into being a full-time artist, only for that to just blow up in my face, which I did go into a little bit of detail over in my art versus commerce video about that from that month. But then about a month to a month and a half later, things started looking up for me once again as I was contacted by a random person who talked about wanting to purchase an original piece of art from me, which seemed convincing enough at first, only for my family and I to recognize that this person was apparently just some sort of fraud. A fraud who was pretty good at playing the game. And unfortunately, shortly after that, between the months of October and November, without giving away too many personal details, something did happen to my family's and my bank accounts that caused us, we had to do some major reorganizations to our financial life, and even now we still have to keep on our toes and keep an eye out for our notifications to make sure that nothing drastic is happening. And even with that, as I've said multiple times, I don't get behind the whole fuck this year mentality for a lot of reasons. Sure, we can all take some time to vent out our frustrations and our suffering, and even acknowledge when a certain year overall was just not good for us, but nihilism only invites more nihilism. That's a philosophy I've always stood by, maybe not by those exact same words, but always by the idea. And I've always felt subconsciously that is a mindset, the mindset of this is the worst year ever, and you can even apply this to something like this is the worst book or movie ever. It's just, in a way, some sort of invitation for another one to come along and say, hold my beer. Not to mention that I don't think cursing year, just in light of passing of one or more beloved figures, like some people I know personally have done, is not truly showing how much you miss them or how much they brought to you or the rest of the world. In fact, in a way, if it's a beloved figure, it can be disingenuous towards those who knew said figure personally, as the final year they had with this person is probably what they were trying to treasure the most, since it's what they have left. I've always been very vocal at how heavy forms of cynicism is not at all what I want to spend my time, energy, and resources towards, as it's never done any good for myself, and I don't think for any others. Very many others, at least. Since stories, be they books, movies, or shows, are my go-to sources for helping me cope with difficult times and reflect realities that I myself am working my way through, one of my personal choice films that has helped me get through the rough times of the pandemic, as well as one of my personal favorite films of all times, is the 1995 Ron Howard directed movie Apollo 13. Actually, I'd say that this pandemic has very much felt like its own Apollo 13 mission in many ways. Like just one small unpredicted spark started a whole chain of reactions that sent us spiraling into chaos with our lives constantly on the line. And as Jim Lovell put it, if we went bouncing off the walls, we'd just end up right back at the beginning with the exact same problems. So instead of wasting time and energy panicking about the odds of dying, better to concentrating on embracing whatever odds of survival are available by whatever means necessary. And if that included conserving whatever little electrical power was available at the time and spending 2 or 3 or 4 days riding back to Earth in a frozen command module, deprived of sufficient food, water, and oxygen, and not even being able to make waste dumps, then so be it. And even after making it back and taking weeks to fully recover health-wise, the astronauts on Apollo 13 never got to walk on the moon, or even fly on space again, for that matter. The fact that they had the whole world praying for their safe return towards the end of the mission, and their recovery being recognized as one of NASA's finest moments, and going on to share their experience with the masses, and even having a movie made about them that is still in many regards stands above as other space-related biopics, is a silver lining to it all. And I think that sort of thing applies to all of us. Whatever predicaments we find ourselves in, there are always going to be sacrifices that are necessary to make, even if they're not small ones. And the journey back to our regular lives is a matter of balancing fortune with our skills and ingenuity. It's a game that we do have to play, and sometimes our luck goes south, but that's when we have to show vigilance and responsibility to make sure it doesn't go further south. And in the film version of Apollo 13, one of the most inspiring scenes involves Tom Hanks playing Jim Lovell in a broadcast interview describing his scenario, a scenario where he's been confronted with several emergencies in his life that he's had to work through prior to Apollo 13, but also brings up how you just never know what events are going to transpire to get you home. And we believe that after 2020 there was nowhere to go but up, and on the whole, I'd say we've been pretty right about that. After all, this year, even with the virus still being prevalent, hospitalizations and death rates are going down significantly, at least here in the US, and it has allowed more businesses to open up, even if many are still struggling to stay open, and there are signs of showing that, but that's still a sign that showing that we do have that fighting spirit and that we will be able to survive. And thankfully, most of the perpetrators of recent hate crimes hate crimes lately have not gone unpunished, we'll say. I know that's a whole controversy in of itself, but as a whole, I'd say that I think we've made the reformations to our systems necessary to ensure the safety and well-being of every person who comes from every background and every walk of life. We've done the best. There's always better that we could do, and always better that we have to try to do. We always have to keep working towards it. But this year has given us a chance on that front. So, what are some of my personal highlights? What were some of my personal highlights of 2021? Well, that's part of what has to do with where you see me recording right now. You may or may not recall that I had said that I had a new shed in my yard that I was going to serve as my art studio to give me a place that I needed to organize my supplies and complete my projects to their fullest potential in the right kind of environment. And that's where you're seeing me right now. We just got it drywalled and spackled, and of course between putting in a finished floor, painting over the spackle areas that you see behind me, and passing the final inspection, it still has a ways to go before it's officially finished and I can call it my studio. But at least I can start working out here for the time being. I'm good. Don't worry about me. I also have a regular job as an artist right now. It's for a website called Stories to Grow By, which features a collection of many classic and even some obscure children's stories and folktales from around the world, which I can provide the link to below. I've already illustrated 7 stories and am on my 8th as I'm recording this. It's one that has given me a fairly consistent and sustainable pay, even though I do still pump gas to pay the bills for the time being. And it's everything that the previous job entry I spoke of failed to deliver on what it promised me, and it's one that I love and have to look forward to every night when I come home from work. This year I've had success selling mugs and calendars featuring my artwork from my hometown, and even getting some art commissions. I even having one of my most recognized art pieces, this one in particular, to be featured on my town website. And part of my absence from social media has had to do with me making some reconfigurations to my own website, including a new animation for it, and I plan to have that new format up for you very soon, just so that all of you can see it and enjoy it. And another highlight for Christmas specifically was that my sister got me the Irish Folklore Trilogy, which includes Secret of Kells, Song of the Sea, and Wolfwalkers. For those of you who may not know, the Irish Folklore Trilogy is these 3 films produced by the independent but ever-growing popularity Irish animation studio Cartoon Saloon. Some of you I know have seen these films, but for those of you who haven't, I absolutely recommend all of them, and if you don't have any access to the streaming platforms that any of these are featured on, then you can get them in this bundle from the Cartoon Saloon website. It's pricey, but believe me when I say that the price is absolutely worth it. My family didn't get to see Spider-Man No Way Home like we'd hoped, but that's all just a testament to how busy we keep ourselves during the holidays. We will still get to see it even if it's still on our own, and we will also get to head out and see other movies that we're looking forward to, like West Side Story and/or Kingsman, when and if they get the chance. And we'll see what else 2022 has in store for us. Whatever it is, we'll do our best to be ready. That's the best that we can do. So with those updates, I hope that I've left you with some words of wisdom and inspiration. I invite you all to tell me how this year has been for you overall, and I'll gladly give you my congrats on your highlights and my condolences for you on your low points. Here's hoping to both you and me that whatever good stuff has happened to us in the past year, however much or however little it was, it continues on into this year, and hopefully with fewer of the caveats. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll talk to you all very soon.